The tunnels were always quiet at night. But Dr. Kale knew silence was never safe. The underground city breathed like a living beast, its pipes groaning and walls dripping with old moisture. Strange lights pulsed from hidden machines, casting shadows that danced along the stone. Most of the citizens slept, their insect-like bodies curled in nests, but Kale remained awake. Doctors never slept when secrets moved through the dark. Kale was not like the others. He had lived long enough to understand that life was a mystery greater than any council order. His small clinic sat at the edge of the tunnels where the lights flickered weakest. There he treated wounds, sickness, and things that were not supposed to exist. For a price, he healed in silence. For trust, he kept what should never be spoken. That night, he heard the footsteps. Soft, uneven, hurried. A shadow staggered into the clinic, leaning against the doorway. Kale rose from his desk, his 6 fingers tightening around the lantern. The figure collapsed on the floor with a faint cry. When the lantern's glow revealed her face, Kale froze. It was a human. Humans had been erased from history, at least. That was what the council claimed. The wars had burned their cities. Their colonies had been crushed, their voices silenced. No one had seen a living human in decades, yet here before him lay a woman with pale skin, torn clothes, and eyes fluttering between life and death. Kale knelt beside her, his senses alert. Her lips moved, whispering sounds in a language few remembered. He caught fragments. "Help! Please, don't let them." The rest was lost to the hiss of leaking pipes. Quickly, he lifted her onto the examination bed. His hands moved with practiced skill, checking her pulse, her wounds, her breathing. But as he placed the scanner over her chest, he felt it, a rhythm, another heartbeat inside her. Faint but steady, Kale's eyes widened, his heart skipped in shock. It was impossible. The human was pregnant. He leaned closer, scanning again, trying to convince himself it was a machine error. But no, the pulse was real. The small life inside her was growing. Kale's mind raced. Humans were not supposed to survive, let alone carry children. If the council learned of this, both mother and unborn would be executed at once. A human pregnancy was not only forbidden, it was unthinkable. He stood frozen, staring at the monitor. The alien doctor who had seen countless strange mutations now trembled. Because what he saw was more than rare, it was dangerous. Life that should not exist had found a way to return. The woman stirred, her eyes opening weakly. Her gaze locked on Kale's, and for a moment he felt something he had not known in centuries. Fear mixed with hope. She grabbed his wrist with surprising strength, whispering again, "You can't. Tell them, they'll kill it. They'll kill me." Kale's throat tightened. Every instinct told him to call the guards, report the crime, protect himself from punishment. But another voice, deep inside, spoke louder. "This is life. This is sacred. This is history reborn." He covered her with a blanket, lowering his voice. "No one must hear you," he said softly. Her hand slipped from his wrist, her strength fading. Soon she drifted back into unconsciousness, her breathing shallow but steady. Kale moved quickly, sealing the doors, dimming the lights. Every sound outside seemed louder, now the crawling of insects, the thrum of machines, the distant echo of patrol boots. He knew the city was always watching, always listening. If a single whisper of this reached the council, the tunnels would flood with soldiers, his clinic would burn, and the secret would die before it could take its first breath. For hours he sat in the shadows, listening to both heartbeats, the woman's and the unborn. Each beat was a question, each sound a risk. What kind of child was this? Could a human life really survive in a world ruled by alien law? And why had fate chosen him, an alien doctor living in exile, to carry this impossible secret? The lantern flickered, casting his reflection against the wall. He saw himself as others saw him, tall, gaunt, with gray skin and tired eyes. But tonight, he did not feel like a doctor. Tonight, he felt like a guardian of something greater than himself, something that could change everything. And in the silence of that underground night, Dr. Cale made a choice. He would hide the human. He would protect the child, even if it meant his own death, because some secrets were not meant to be destroyed. Some secrets were meant to be born. Asterisk, the impossible discovery Dr. Cale had treated creatures with iron in their blood, parasites that lived in bone, even a soldier who carried a second brain like a tumor. But never had he seen this. The human woman lay on his table, her breath shallow, her skin pale, her heart fighting to hold on, yet inside her chest, beneath fragile ribs, another rhythm pulsed. The soft, steady beat of life that was not supposed to exist. Cale leaned closer to the scanner. Adjusting the dials, the screen flickered, showing faint images. At first, only shadows, then a form appeared, curled small and glowing with heat. A child growing too fast. Far faster than any pregnancy should. Cale's jaws tightened. This was not a normal human child. The bones were forming at a strange speed. The heartbeat was too strong. The growth was unnatural. It was as if the unborn refused to wait, as if time itself bent around it. His mind raced through the ancient records. Things whispered in hidden texts. Some claimed it long ago. Humans had a gift, a force inside them that could bend fate, shape destiny. The council had called it danger, and that was why humans were erased. But looking at the screen now, Cale wondered if those whispers had been true. The woman stirred, her lips dry. Cale held water to her mouth, and she drank weakly. When her eyes opened, they burned with fear and something stronger, defiance. She studied him, her gaze sharp even in weakness. "You see it, don't you?" she whispered. Cale did not answer. "You know it is different," she pressed. "That's why they can't find out." Her voice cracked, but her words were steady. "If the council learns, they'll cut it out of me. They'll burn it before it breathes." She gripped his sleeve, her nails biting into his skin. "I don't care what happens to me. Just promise you'll protect the child." Cale hesitated. He was a doctor, trained to heal, not to fight governments or carry burdens of rebellion. Yet the scanner still hummed. The image of the unborn flickering on the screen. Something about that heartbeat felt louder than the city itself, like a drum calling him toward a path he could not refuse. Finally he spoke, his voice low. "What are you? Where did you come from?" The woman's lips trembled. "My name is Alara," she said softly. "I'm from the old colony, hidden in the outer wastes. We survived when they thought all humans were gone." Her breath caught, pain flashing across her face. "They hunted. US scattered us, most were taken, but I ran, and then I found out." Her hand moved to her stomach, trembling. "This child, it is not only human," she whispered. "It is something more." Cale felt his heart skip. The words hung heavy in the clinic. "More?" he asked, his voice sharp. Elora's eyes glistened with tears. "I don't know how, but the child is different. It grows too fast, too strong, as if it does not belong to one world." Her grip tightened, her nails digging into his flesh. "Again, that is why I came here, because if anyone finds out, the council will destroy us both. But maybe you can help." Cale pulled away, pacing the room. This was madness harboring a human, protecting a forbidden child. If the patrols searched his clinic, he would be executed without trial. And yet, each time his eyes flicked back to the screen, he felt the truth pressing down on him. This was not just a pregnancy. This was the beginning of something the galaxy had tried to erase. Something that had survived anyway. He returned to her side, his voice cold but steady. "If I do this, if I hide you, it will cost more than my life." Alara's answer came quick, almost like a plea. "Then let it cost both of us, but not the child." Cale studied her. Humans were fragile, desperate, emotional creatures, but there was something unbreakable in her eyes, something that made him believe she would crawl through fire to protect what grew inside her. The monitor beeped again, louder this time. The heartbeat of the unborn echoed through the room. Cale felt the sound deep in his bones. For the first time in centuries, The alien doctor believed in miracles, and he knew, with a certainty that chilled him, this child was not just human. It was a secret powerful enough to bring the underground city to its knees. The hidden truth: the underground city never slept, even in the deepest hours. The tunnels echoed with the groan of metal, the hiss of steam, and the endless beat of machines. But inside Cale's small clinic, a fragile silence held its breath. Ilara rested beneath a dim light, her face pale, her body weak. Her breaths came slow, but the fire in her eyes burned brighter than the lanterns. Cale stood across the room, arms folded, his gray skin tight with unease. He had hidden criminals before, smugglers, runaways, even spies, but never had he hidden a human. Never had he hidden a secret so heavy. He turned away, pretending to study his instruments, but her voice broke the silence. "You don't trust me," she said softly. Cale glanced at her, his expression sharp. "I don't trust anyone," he answered. "That is why I am still alive," Ilara smiled faintly, though her lips trembled. "Then let me tell you something no one else knows." She pushed herself up on the bed, clutching her stomach. Her voice grew steadier as she spoke. "There was a colony," she began, "far beyond the wastes, hidden in caverns deeper than these tunnels." Her eyes flickered with memory. "We lived in silence like ghosts, afraid to breathe too loudly in case the patrols heard. We had no light but fire, no food but what we stole. But we were alive." Cale's brows furrowed. The councils. Records had claimed every human colony was destroyed, but her words carried no lie, only pain. Ilara's voice dropped, lower now, as if the walls might be listening. "My people told stories of what came before, of Earth, of skies filled with stars and oceans wide as worlds." Her hand pressed against her chest. "But they also told us why we were hunted. Because humans had something the council feared. Not weapons, not armies, something greater." Cale stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. "What is this something?" he asked. Ilara hesitated, her gaze heavy. "They called it the spark," she whispered. "The power to change, to adapt, to survive anything." Cale scoffed, shaking his head. "Fairy tales," he muttered, though the doubt in his voice betrayed him. But Ilara's eyes hardened. "Fairy tales don't bleed," she said, her hand moving again to her swollen belly. "This child grows because of that spark, too fast, too strong, too different, and if they find out, they'll erase it, just like they erased us." The weight of her words pressed on Cale like stone. He wanted to dismiss it, to call it superstition, but the memory of that glowing scan burned in his mind. He had seen the child's strength. With his own eyes, Ilara's voice softened, trembling now. "My husband died protecting me. He told me to run, to never stop running. He said our child was hope, that if even one of us survived, the story of humans would not end." Her words caught in her throat, tears glistening at the edges of her eyes. Cale felt something twist inside him, something he had long buried. He remembered the old wars, the flames, the screams. He remembered treating soldiers who whispered that humans did not fight like other species, that even broken, they stood again, that even dying, they clung to life. Cale's voice came low, almost a whisper. "Hope is dangerous." Ilara nodded, her gaze steady. "Then let it be dangerous," she said, "but let it live." The words struck him harder than any weapon. For a long moment, the clinic was silent, broken only by the steady hum of the monitor. 2 heartbeats echoed through the room, the mother's and the unborn's. Together they sounded like defiance. Cale turned away, pacing slowly. He thought of the patrols, the council, the endless eyes watching the city. He thought of his own survival, the life he had built carefully from shadows. And then he thought of the child. A secret heartbeat that could undo everything or change everything. When he faced her again, his expression was no longer cold. "I will keep your secret," he said at last, his voice steady. Ilara sagged in relief, her hand pressing her stomach. "Thank you," she whispered, but Cale raised a hand, his eyes hard. "Do not thank me," he said. "This path will destroy us both." Ilara met his gaze without flinching. "Then we will walk it together," she answered. And for the first time in centuries, Dr. Kale felt the weight of choice pressing heavier than any law. A hidden truth now lived in his clinic, and the world would never forgive him for keeping it. Enemies close in the city above Kale's clinic had grown restless. Whispers moved faster than steam through broken pipes. Something forbidden had been seen. Someone whispered, something alive that should not exist. Kale felt it first in the silence. The tunnels outside his clinic no longer echoed with lazy footsteps or drunken voices. Now the air carried the sharp rhythm of boots, patrols, moving in patterns too tight to be chance. The council was searching, though no one yet knew what for. Inside the clinic, Ilara sat quietly, her hand always pressed against her stomach. Her face had regained color, but her eyes never lost their fear. She would flinch at every knock of metal, every hiss of a vent. Kale tried to keep her calm, but even he could not hide the tension in his jaw. One evening, the hum of machines outside grew louder through the cracks of the clinic door. Faint blue lights swept the tunnel. Kale's heart clenched. Drones. The watchers of the council. They searched not for disease, not for danger, but for secrets. He quickly doused the lanterns, leaving only the dim glow of the monitor. "Do not speak," he whispered. Ilara nodded, clutching the blanket tighter. Around her shoulders, the sound of drones drifted closer, their metal wings humming like wasps. A beam of blue light cut across the clinic door. Kale held his breath. For a moment, the light lingered, pressing against the cracks as if sniffing for lies. Then it passed, but the silence it left behind felt heavier than iron. Ilira's voice broke after a long pause. "They are searching for me," she whispered. Kale shook his head, his tone sharp. "They are searching for it," he said, glancing at her stomach. "They know something is here, though they do not know what." She lowered her gaze, fear tightening her features. "If they find out, it will all be over." Kale did not answer. He only listened to the heartbeat from the monitor, the child's rhythm louder than ever. The next day, the tension grew worse. A neighbor came by, his insect-like eyes twitching. "You've had visitors late at night," he said, voice low. Kale gave a practiced smile. "Sick travelers, nothing more." But the neighbor leaned closer, his mandibles clicking. "Rumor says a doctor hides a forbidden child." His eyes glistened, hungry for secrets. Kale forced a laugh, cold and sharp. "Rumors are all the city has," he replied. But when the neighbor left, the doctor's hands trembled. That night, Kale made a decision. Ilara could no longer remain in the open. The clinic was no longer safe. He led her through a back door, down narrow tunnels where the air grew damp and stale. There, hidden beneath rusted pipes and abandoned machinery, he had carved out a secret chamber long ago, a place meant for fugitives. Now it would be a cradle for the impossible. Ilara's breath caught as she stepped inside the small space. Walls of stone, low ceiling, a single lantern casting a weak glow. "It feels like a tomb," she whispered. Kale answered without expression. "Then may it be a tomb for your fears." He set up the monitor again, listening to the child's heartbeat. But even as he worked, his mind was elsewhere. The council's eyes were everywhere. The city itself felt alive, listening, waiting. Every sound, every rumor, every glance could be the end. Outside, the patrols grew bolder. 2 drones passed the clinic twice in the same hour. Voices shouted questions in the tunnels. "Have you seen anything unusual? Have you heard of a woman? Have you heard of a child?" Kale's clinic became a cage. Ilara became a shadow, and the unborn heartbeat became both a song of hope and a drum of doom. One night, as Kale stood in the dark chamber, listening to both breaths, mother and child, a sharp knock echoed at the front of his clinic. Too strong, too direct, not a neighbor, not a patient, but soldiers. Kale froze, his gray skin paling. The sound came again, heavier this time. "Dr. Kale," a deep voice called. "Open your doors." Ilara's eyes widened, panic flashing. Kale placed a hand against the wall, listening. The soldiers were waiting. The hunters were here, and for the first time since the discovery, Kale wondered if even he could keep this secret alive. The chase begins. The pounding on Kale's door did not stop. It came again, harder, the metal frame shuddering under each blow. "Dr. Kale," the voice thundered. "You are ordered to open immediately." Kale stood frozen for a breath too. Long, then instinct returned. He snuffed the lantern, grabbed Alara's arm, and pulled her toward the hidden passage. "This way," he whispered. Her eyes were wide, but she did not resist. The clinic door groaned as soldiers forced the lock. By the time the hinges screamed and the frame gave way, Kale and Alara were already in the blackness of the tunnel. The secret door sealed behind them with a hiss, leaving nothing but silence. The tunnels here were different, older, rougher, carved before the city itself had spread underground. The walls were jagged stone instead of metal, dripping with cold. Water that echoed like whispers. Kale led quickly, his memory guiding him through twisting paths. But even here, the hum of drones followed. Faint but growing louder, Alara stumbled, clutching her stomach. The child. "It's moving," she gasped. Kale steadied her, his voice tight. "Then it will have to keep moving." His tone was cold, but inside he felt the weight of each step. Every second brought them closer to discovery. Behind them, blue light cut into the dark. The drones had found the trail. Their metallic wings buzzed like angry hornets, their scanners humming as they painted the walls with light. Kale cursed under his breath and pulled Alara faster. The tunnel split into two paths, left, wide and well-trodden, right, narrow and half-collapsed. He chose the right, the path of shadows. The ceiling pressed low, forcing them to crouch. Rubble scraped against their feet, and every stone seemed ready to betray them with a sound. Alara struggled to keep pace, sweat dripping from her brow, but when Kale glanced back, her eyes burned with the same fire as before, fear and strength mixed in equal measure. A sudden shriek split the tunnel. One of the drones had forced its way through the rubble, its light stabbing the dark. Kale spun, lifting a rusted metal bar from the ground. The machine screeched and lunged forward. He swung with all his strength, sparks flying as the bar smashed against its shell. The drone tumbled, thrashing, its lens cracked. Kale struck again and again until it lay silent, its lights flickering out. For a moment, there was only the sound of his own heavy breath. Then another hum echoed deeper in the tunnel. More drones were coming. "Go," Kale urged, pushing Alara forward. They stumbled into another chamber, vast and echoing. Pipes dripped from the ceiling. Broken machines lay scattered like corpses. This was no longer a tunnel. It was a graveyard of forgotten technology. Alara leaned against a wall, gasping, her face twisted in pain. "It's too fast," she whispered, her voice breaking. "The child." "It's growing too fast." Kale knelt beside her, scanning quickly. The readings made his skin crawl. The fetus had developed weeks and only days. It was as if the child itself was racing against the world, desperate to be born. He met her eyes, his voice trembling. "This is no ordinary pregnancy, Alara. This child is breaking every law of nature." Her reply came sharp, filled with fear and defiance. "Then it will break their laws too." Before Kale could respond, the chamber shook, the walls lit with the glow of approaching patrol lights. The soldiers had found the graveyard. Their footsteps echoed like thunder, their weapons ready. Kale helped Alara to her feet, his voice low and firm. "This is no longer about survival," he said, her gaze locked on his, determined. "It never was," she whispered. "It was always about the child." And together, they fled deeper into the forgotten darkness, chased not only by soldiers and machines, but by the ticking heartbeat of a future no one was ready to face. The sacrifice. The graveyard of machines trembled under the march of soldiers. Blue lights swept across broken metal, hunting shadows like predators searching for prey. Kale dragged Alara deeper into the ruins, but every step echoed too loudly. Every breath felt like a signal to their pursuers. Alara clutched her stomach, her face pale and drenched with sweat. "It's coming," she gasped. Her voice raw. Cale stopped. His heart's pounding. No. Not here, not now. But the truth was plain in her eyes. Her body could not wait. The child was forcing its way into the world. Too early, too fast, too impossible. They stumbled into a collapsed laboratory. The walls scorched and blackened, old tables lay overturned, and shattered glass crunched beneath their feet. Cale pushed Alara onto a broken platform, his hands moving with desperate speed. He cleared debris, set the scanner, and tried to prepare. But his fingers trembled. This was no safe clinic. This was a battlefield. The hum of drones grew louder. Shouts echoed down the corridors. "Search every chamber." A soldier's voice barked, "Find the woman, find the doctor." Alara cried out, her back arching. Her hands clawed at the metal table as pain ripped through her body. Cale gritted his teeth, forcing himself to focus. He had delivered lives before, but never like this. Never while death itself waited just beyond the door. Sweat poured down his face as he worked. The monitor flickered, showing the child's heartbeat. It was wild, fierce, a rhythm too strong for such a small body. Cale whispered under his breath, not sure if it was a prayer or a curse. "Hold on, hold on." The door to the lab rattled. A heavy crash followed, then another. Soldiers were breaking through. Cale's hands shook as he pulled tools from his bag. He knew he could not fight them, not and save the child. There was only one choice: deliver life or prepare for death. He chose life. Ilara's scream tore through the chamber. Her voice echoed off the metal walls, louder than the boots outside. Cale worked quickly. His mind split between her agony and the thundering door. "Breathe," he urged, his voice harsh. "But steady. Do not stop breathing." The final crash came. The door exploded inward. Soldiers storming in, weapons raised. But then, in that instant, another sound silenced the world. The cry of a newborn. It rang out pure and strong. Louder than machines, louder than soldiers. The baby's voice cut through the chaos like fire through darkness. The soldiers froze, their steps faltering. Even the drones paused, their lights flickering. Cale lifted the child in trembling hands, small, fragile, yet glowing with something beyond explanation. Its eyes open, not dull or weak, but bright, shining with a light that made even the soldiers recoil. Gasps filled the chamber. What is that?" One whispered, another lowered his weapon, fear in his voice. "It cannot be." Ilara lay back, exhausted, tears streaming down her face. "Is it alive?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Cale nodded slowly, his eyes fixed on the child. "Yes," he said, his voice heavy with awe and dread. "It is alive. And it is not like anything we have ever known." The soldiers hesitated, unsure, caught between duty and fear. One raised his weapon again, his voice shaking. The council ordered its destruction, but his hands trembled, his finger frozen on the trigger. The child's glowing eyes stared back, unblinking, unafraid, and in that gaze, even the hunter saw something greater than orders. Cale stepped forward, holding the child close. "This is no weapon," he declared, his voice fierce. "This is life, and life cannot be erased." The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. Their hesitation filled the chamber with heavy silence. The cry of the newborn echoed again, a sound so pure that even hardened killers faltered. For the first time, Cale felt hope as sharp as a blade. But he also knew hope demanded a price. He glanced at Alara, pale and weak, her eyes barely open. Her sacrifice was already written in her blood and breath. The child had come into the world, but at a terrible cost. Cale clutched the newborn tighter. The soldier's fear gave him seconds, maybe minutes, but he knew it would not last. The council would not stop, the hunt would never end, and so he prepared himself for the final choice: to fight, to flee, or to fall so the child might live. Because some sacrifices are not a question, they are a destiny. The revelation, the newborn's cry, still echoed through the broken laboratory. It was not weak or fragile. It was strong, sharp, alive. The sound made even armed soldiers hesitate. Their weapons lowered inch by inch, their eyes locked on the far child glowing faintly in Cale's arms. Ilara lay on the table, pale and trembling, her lips curved in the faintest smile. Her eyes fixed on the baby, she whispered, her voice thin as air. "Let me see." Cale bent close, holding the child where she could see its face. Ilara's tears fell freely. "So beautiful," she murmured. Before her strength faltered and her head sank back, Cale's heart twisted with grief, but the baby squirmed. Against his chest, eyes wide open, unblinking. Those eyes Cale froze. They were not human, not alien, but something entirely new, bright, silver, like stars reflected in a pool of water. And in their light, Cale felt something pierce through his mind. Not words, not sound, but presence, as if the newborn was looking into him. The soldiers felt it too. One stumbled back, shaking his head. "It sees us," he muttered, his voice breaking. Another dropped his weapon entirely, whispering, "This is no child. This is an omen." But the youngest soldier, trembling with fear, hissed through clenched teeth, "The council ordered its death. If we do not act, they will kill us instead." He raised his weapon, his finger tightening. Cale stepped forward, his voice raw with fury. "You see it," he cried. "You feel it. This child is not death, it is life. And if you kill it, you kill the future itself." The soldier hesitated, his hands shaking. The baby's eyes glowed brighter, silver light spilling across the chamber walls. And then something impossible happened. The broken machines around them sparked. Dead circuits flickered to life. Shattered screens glowed faintly. It was as if the child's presence breathed power into the ruins. The air buzzed with energy, unnatural. And alive, the soldiers backed away in terror. One whispered, "The stories were true." The spark. Humans carried the spark. Another shook his head violently. "No. This is worse than the council feared. This thing is not human. It's something beyond." Cale clutched the child tighter. He could feel the tiny heartbeat against his chest, strong, steady, unstoppable. And for the first time in centuries, the doctor understood what hope truly meant. It was not safe. It was not gentle. Hope was dangerous, sharp as fire, bright enough to burn. The soldier's commander stepped forward, his face pale but his voice firm. "Dr. Cale," he said, "you cannot hide this. The council will tear the city apart to find it. If you take that child, you are not only defying the law, you are declaring war." Cale met his gaze, his arms steady around the newborn. "Then let it be war," he said, his voice low, "because no law can erase life, no empire can erase the truth." Commander's jaw tightened, but his soldiers no longer moved. The newborn's glow reflected in their eyes. Fear and awe tangled together. No one dared fire. No one dared step closer. The baby's cry softened into silence. Its silver eyes blinked slowly, and for a moment, the whole chamber seemed to breathe with it. Machines hummed faintly, broken. Glass shimmered. Even the air felt alive. Ilara, weak and fading, whispered one final word. "Live." Her voice slipped into silence, her chest rising no more. Cale lowered his head, grief pressing heavy. But he did not falter. He held the child close. "I will keep your secret," he whispered to her still form. "I will keep it, no matter the cost." Outside the chamber, alarms rang through the city. The council knew. The hunt was no longer a rumor. It was war, and deep in Cale's arms, the newborn opened its mouth again. But this time, no cry came, only a strange sound, not quite human, not quite alien. A sound that felt like the beginning of something new. The soldiers stared, frozen. The commander whispered in dread, "This child will change everything." And in that moment, Dr. Cale knew the truth. The world had shifted. Nothing would ever be the same again.